Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, today we are tackling a massive topic and going on a seriously fascinating journey through our sources. We're going to see how they bridge the gap between ancient texts, medieval mysticism, and even modern biology, all to completely redefine a word we use every single day. That word is love. We throw it around all the time, right? But as we're about to see, the historical and biological reality of love is way more structured, demanding, and honestly incredible than just a warm, fuzzy feeling in your chest.
Right off the bat, our sources throw a bit of a curveball, a Socratic question meant to pull us right out of our comfort zones. I want you to really think about it for a second. What is the absolutely one thing you cannot live without? Take a moment. Let that silence hang. Don't answer too quickly.
Well, brace yourself, because whatever just popped into your head, that is your God. That's the thing you ultimately worship. It completely dictates your focus. Our sources point out a pretty profound truth here. You've always got to serve somebody. And this sets up a really remarkable paradox when we look at the Christian moral law, which a lot of people mistakenly think is just a giant, exhausting list of thou shalt nots.
Part 1. The Two-Sided Commandment, Reducing the Law.
You know, historically, the rabbis counted exactly 613 laws in the Torah. 613. But what our sources highlight is truly wild is how this massive, overwhelming list was completely distilled down into just two positive commands. Loving the divine and loving your neighbor are not two separate things. They are absolutely intrinsically linked, basically functioning like one single commandment with two faces. Think of it like the two beams of a cross. You've got a vertical beam reaching upward and a horizontal beam reaching outward. You literally cannot have the structure without both.
Part 2. The Anatomy of Love Breaking Down the House.
So let's zoom in on that internal upward beam of our metaphor first, loving God. The sources break this down into a really precise anatomy of 4 dimensions, almost like the 4 corners of a house: heart, soul, mind, and strength. It's a package deal. If you take away any one of these dimensions, the roof falls in. So let's dive into each corner to see what this kind of holistic devotion actually looks like in everyday practice. First up, the heart. Now you've got to scratch whatever modern Hallmark card image you've got in your head. The biblical heart isn't where you feel fleeting, temporary emotions. It is the core of the inner self. It's the absolute seat of the will. It's the command center where we make total, undivided decisions. What that means is, love is fundamentally an act of obedience and will, not just a fuzzy feeling on a good day. It's making a concrete decision to love, even when someone cuts you off in traffic.
The second and third corners are the mind and the soul. Now listen, loving with the mind doesn't mean you need to go out and become an academic theologian. Not at all. It just means keeping our thoughts clean and our daily focus sharp, because ultimately, what we think about is what we become. And the soul? That's all about total availability. It's putting your intellect, your imagination, your deepest hidden fears, and your secret dreams entirely at the disposal of a higher purpose.
Finally, the 4th corner, strength. This is where the rubber meets the road. Your strength is your energy, your resources, your abilities. We're talking about your time, talent, and treasure. The sources present a brilliantly practical challenge here. Look at your clock and look at your bank account right now. Why? Because the clock doesn't lie. It is arguably the most honest spiritual director in the world. Where you are spending your time and your money is exactly where your love is actually going.
Part 3. The Biology of the Heart. Science meets spirit.
Okay, so we just defined the heart as the center of decision-making. But why on earth do we physically feel these spiritual devotions right in the middle of our chest? Before science caught up, let's look at a crazy historical contrast. The ancient Egyptians had a purely mechanical view of the heart. During embalming, they would carefully preserve the physical heart in jars. But get this, they literally scooped out the brain and threw it away as trash. They thought the physical organ was the whole shebang. The biblical view, though, is much deeper. It understands the heart not just as a blood pump, but as the inner control center of human identity and choice.
And this is where it gets absolutely fascinating, because modern biology literally catches up right here. Enter the polyvagal theory, developed by Dr. Stephen Porges. This theory maps out the vagus nerve, which is this major nerve connecting your brain right down into your body, heavily influencing the chest area. When you make a deep, committed choice of love or experience profound gratitude, this nerve is what causes that physical sensation of warmth or tightness in your chest. Our bodies are literally, biologically wired to physically echo our deepest spiritual devotions. Science actually meets spirit.
Part 4. St. Catherine's Mystical Bridge, the Outward Beam.
All right, so we've got the vertical beam down, reaching upward. Now, to understand the horizontal beam, loving our neighbor, our sources pull in St. Catherine of Siena. She was a 14th century mystic, and in her writings, she was on a quest to solve a massive dilemma. How can a finite, totally limited human being ever possibly repay the infinite love of the divine? She asked this question directly, and the answer she recorded is absolutely central to what we're unpacking today.
The divine reply she got was a total game changer. It was essentially, you can't repay me directly, therefore I have intentionally placed you in the middle of your neighbors so that you can love them gratuitously without expecting a single thing in return. And here's the absolute kicker. What you do to him, I count as done to me.
St. Catherine illustrates this with a breathtaking, highly visual metaphor of a bridge. Think of the soul as being on this dusty, exhausting pilgrimage. But to cross over to the heights of spiritual vision, it has to walk across this bridge of humanity. You cannot bypass the people around you. Your spiritual love absolutely must translate into physical, tangible service to your neighbor.
Part 5. Love is a verb. The Good Samaritan re-examined. To really nail this down, we've got to strip away the cute Sunday school version of the Good Samaritan. Pay close attention to the exact sequence of actions here. In the original text, the Samaritan's response is defined by 8 specific verbs. He sees, he goes, he binds, he pours, he sets, he brings, he takes care, and he pays. 8 concrete actions, not one feeling, not one sad emoji. This is historical proof that love is a verb. It costs time, it costs money, and it is terribly inconvenient. If it doesn't cost you anything, it's just a warm feeling, and warm feelings do absolutely nothing for the guy stuck in the ditch.
The climax of that whole narrative is a massive perspective shift. The guy asking Jesus the question wanted a legal loophole. He asks, "Who is my neighbor?" basically trying to draw a circle around the worthy people he was obligated to help. But the text aggressively flips it inward. Am I being a neighbor? It challenges you to become the circle for whoever happens to be placed right in front of you, whether you think they deserve it or not.
Conclusion. The intersection of beams, bringing it all together.
So let's bring it all home. We have this vertical beam of devotion, literally wired into our human biology. And we have the horizontal beam of active, verb-driven love for the neighbor standing right in front of us. These two beams have to intersect. You cannot truly love the divine, whom you can't see, without actively loving the neighbor you can see. Cut off either beam, and the whole structure completely collapses. They meet at one single point, the ultimate example of love in action, symbolized by the heart of Christ on the cross.
But we are left with this massive, final paradox from our sources. If you try to generate all this love purely on your own steam, you are going to burn out by tomorrow morning. Love isn't something we manufacture in a factory, it's something we receive and pass on. So you really have to ask yourself, are you constantly exhausted trying to be the source of love, or are you willing to just be the riverbed, the faucet? You provide the pipe, you let the love flow through you, and you pour it out onto the very next neighbor in your path. Really think about that the next time you interact with someone today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.